Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Heroes and zeros. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, it was very tempting to start tonight by laying right into the dim-witted hypocrites at Saturday's No Kings rally. Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to get to them in a moment. But first, I want to tell you about a great patriot, Colonel Robert Wilburn Hill. It was one of the greatest privileges of my life to join his family as he was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery this morning. With the morning dew still kissing the grass, the sounds and sights of the burial with full military honors filled the fall air. Service, patriotism, sacrifice, humility. Those summed up Colonel Hill's life, and those are the traits we should elevate and celebrate daily. He passed away at age 93 4 years ago, but because of all the administrative delays, he couldn't be buried until today. His devoted wife, Joyce, who died last year, was buried with him. Bob Whiffy Hill enlisted in the Army in World War II and served in the Pacific Theater in the final months of the war. After college, he completed Officers Candidate School at Fort Benning. In the Korean War, he was company commander in the 1st Battalion, 31st Infantry Regiment. And he fought in the brutal Pusan Perimeter Offensive in September of 1950. This is a picture of Bob with his helmet from that battle, one of the 2 times he was wounded in the head. He was also an airborne rifle infantry commander with the 82nd Airborne, and in the Vietnam War, he served as commander of the Special Operations Group. So in an era when so many on social media brag about nothing, and when so many, including over the weekend, spend their time running down America, Bob's story of quiet humility and gratitude took my breath away.
On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and the grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
420,000 patriots are buried in Arlington because freedom is not free. And unlike in a monarchy, freedom of speech is guaranteed to all of us in the United States. Of course, junior high school students should know that if we lived under a king, this weekend's anti-Trump rallies would have been prohibited. But instead, the No Kings buffoons were out in full force.
What has President Trump done to make him a monarch?
He started to take control and do illegal things and that are not within his power. So that's pretty much what makes a person a monarch. They take complete control even though they shouldn't have it.
What illegal things has he done?
Every single thing since he's gotten into office.
Deporting illegal immigrants, is that illegal?
If they came here illegally, I believe we're a country that stands for Lady Liberty. It said, give me your tired, give me everybody you can possibly bring into the United States, and it doesn't say ship them back out.
And half of the goofballs out there didn't even know what they were protesting.
What brings you out here?
Rising fascism.
What is fascism?
Well, if you look historically, when a government no longer follows the will of the people, that is a large part of fascism. I would direct you to some of the really good literature on the topic.
Can you define it?
And lawmakers, of course, they're no better.
We are not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We are in the middle of an authoritarian takeover. But Trump has not won. Our democracy is in peril, but it can be saved. It is up to us to save us.
It was like a bad high school theater production where the kids just didn't rehearse enough.
Are you willing to sit back and bend the knee to fascists and white supremacists? Are you willing to be the Americans on whose watch democracy died? Good, because people power is our last line of defense.
And if Trump, of course, were really a king, is this how one of his subjects would speak to him?
Tyranny in any form must be resisted by the people of conscience, especially here in Chicago. We will never surrender.
So Donald Trump, stay the hell out of Chicago.
When asked about it, Trump flicked him off.
When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Someone should tell Nancy, or I should say, someone should help Nancy.
We're going to tear up the crown.
A lot of old-timers acting out, and of course, no rally would be complete without an appearance by a washed-up actor.
The whole country was founded on no kings. We have masked goons roaming the streets, hiding their faces, abducting people.
As he is literally hiding behind his sunglasses. Now consider the source. And by the way, that was the apex of his career. Say anything with the boombox. Maybe he should have done the whole little spiel there with the boombox. That would have been better. Of course, all these people are hypocrites. They call Trump a dictator when, in fact, Democrats are the ones who love ordering people around. What they did to our kids, our churches, our communities during COVID, forcing people to get the shots or they're going to lose their job, destroying lives with their stupid, dangerous edicts, as they ate and they traveled like royalty because the rules don't apply to them. They're protecting democracy? Then why did Barack Obama, George Clooney, and a few donors decide who would be their party's nominee in 2024? Why did their party try to kick Trump off the ballot only to get goose-egged by the Supreme Court? They want to control every aspect of your lives, banning the sale of gas-powered cars, preventing parents from having a say over the kids' choice of gender. Look, these agitator blowhards, they're conning themselves, they're conning you, or both. How many people over the weekend in frog outfits or Trump baby get-ups look worried that they were going to get locked up in some Stalin-esque prison or royal jail, please? In fact, Donald Trump came into office to take power away from the closest thing we've seen to royal families in this country, the Bushes, the Cheneys, and the Clintons. Well, a little historical knowledge might be too much to expect from a lot of the folks we saw over the weekend. Seems like many of the No Kings marchers had no clue.
Anything in particular you really dislike that Trump has done?
Was she in prayer? Enough said. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.